Okay, so just a short one this morning. This is the opening round of this final season of the Zwift Racing League. And for myself, this is going to be the first time that I've raced a ZRL race up in the A group. So I'm racing today with the WLC DEV team. This is a very, very high level race. There's a lot of really low ranked riders in this race who've got some insane power. There's a number of riders who've got 20-minute powers that are 5.5 plus watts per kilo. So for myself, it's going to be a real challenge to actually kind of try and hold on here. Start of the race here, just come out of the pens. We've got 70 riders in this group. And we're taking on one lap of the Ocean Lava Cliffside Loop, which is fairly short. It's just over 19 kilometers, but it does have one real significant feature in the middle of the lap, in the middle of the route, about 9k in. There's the beginning of the epic KOM climb, which was going to be around about a 75-second, 90-second effort on the steeper section, but then the gradient continues for about another kilometre just past that, kind of at around 3%. So it was something that I didn't know if I was going to be able to hold on to. I've agreed to kind of race at this level. It's going to be difficult for me to be able to compete, but I am keen to kind of improve. You know, I want to try and get to the best level that I personally can. So when I was given the opportunity to actually race with some of these guys here in this ZRL event, I jumped at the chance, really. Even though I know that it's something that's going to be really difficult for me to actually to compete at this level or even to hang on, I know that it's something that it can only help me develop further. So basically the plan was do as little as I could to try and actually stay in the group, do my absolute best to hold the front of the race, or at least stay as far forward and remain in the best position that I could do after that climb, and just kind of see how that goes, and then get the best sprint result, the best positioning that I could at the final. So we'll skip forward. We won't go through the whole race. We'll just skip forward to a couple of key sections and selections and just discuss those as we get to them. So I've skipped forward slightly, just to the base of the Dirty Suppressor climb. This little climb can often be quite decisive in many Zwift races. It's that little dirt climb past the Italian villas. When you climb up from the volcano, there's this short section here. It's only a few hundred meters long, but it's on dirt, and it's 3-4, I think it might touch 5%. So we felt that just staying towards the front of the group here, this isn't somewhere where a decisive move might go, but it is somewhere that if you sat too far to the back of the group, it is possible to perhaps get a little bit tailed off. So it was just a case here, I'm sitting up in the top kind of third of the pack. It's taking a bit of an effort there actually to kind of hold on. You can see my heart rate is up 188. The power was kind of maybe mid 6 watts per kilo, just to kind of sit in that pack. Up in the mini map, it is quite strung out, so we felt that a few riders here might actually get tailed off, and it was just important to stay sat in the draft, and just kind of not lose the race before it starts, really, just by being too far to the back and actually getting tailed off. So I sat up in the top third of the pack. Like I say, took a bit of an effort. 189 now. The heart rate is just on this little rise that comes after it. But I made sure that I was sat in that group and was safe. And it was now a case of, on the slight descent, doing the absolute minimum that I could, because I knew that the key climb and the key selection of this race was coming up just in a couple of K. So we've jumped forward to kilometre 8.4, and there was a lot of discussion in our Discord. Jan, who was helping to kind of DS our group here today, was saying that it was really important for us to actually move forward and be towards, particularly for the kind of the heavier riders, or the riders perhaps a bit more like myself who haven't got that really high watts per kilo that a lot of the racers in this pack have got, to move towards the front of the pack on this boardwalk section. So you've got a little bit of sliding room as you kind of get onto the climb proper then. But as you can see, my heart rate is already up to 180, just pushing through to the front of that pack there. The power is high 300 watts. And just onto the base of this climb, I was already feeling it, to be honest. So got out of the saddle, put it in a fairly high gear, and just try to keep stamping down on those pedals. Something that I've started doing recently, again, this has come out of a little bit of the racing that I've been doing with the dev team and some of the kind of the discussions and the tactical discussions around virtual racing that we've been having, is that at times where you want to put out a bit of a higher power but over a shorter period of time, it can be quite good to actually get out of the saddle, put it in a high gear, and actually just kind of churn it out stood up with a lower cadence. Now that's something that traditionally I haven't done. I've usually been someone who stayed sat in the saddle and maybe spun a slightly higher gear to put out that power. But I've tried getting out of the saddle here, and so far it's been quite successful. I'm still embedded well within that kind of front pack, but the heart rate is well over 200 now. The power that I needed to do for that minute was, again, it was regularly up well over 600 into 700 watts. But in the mini-map, that group is really, really strung out. And at this point, I am really hurting. Really, really hurting. But I'm still there, just about. I was a bit surprised to actually still be in this kind of this slight leading group over that climb. But it was just as we got onto this bridge area where the gradient drops, that the leading pack here, they're still pushing on at that kind of, high 6 watts per kilo power, and I'm just struggling here. I'm just still in touch, just about. The power, I was still up over 400 watts there, just in touch, but I'm really, really struggling at this point to actually hold on. I was really happy with my initial effort over the steeper section. Staying out of the saddle and just kind of stamping on the pedals did keep me in touch with the lead group, but I just did not have that extra maybe 30 seconds that I needed, as it sort of flattened out slightly and it was on that false flat of the bridge. I just didn't have that extra 30 seconds power. I actually did, when I've reviewed my power data after the race, I set a new PB 2 minute sort of power for that section there, from the base of the climb until I actually kind of got dropped from that front group. So I set a PB 2 minute power of 540 watts. So I don't really think I could have done a great deal more. I went probably as deep as I could go. And just as this little group here was forming, there's only 5 seconds to the main pack, and I was kind of hoping that perhaps here I could sit on the wheels of some of these riders who might actually try and go across. But I had, like I said, I was quite happy with the effort I put in to initially stick with that group. But I experienced something that I probably haven't experienced as bad to this point. I stayed out of the saddle for basically all of that climb, and it clearly helped me in putting out power, because like I said, I put out a new PB power for that. I've never put out that amount of kind of raw watts for 2 minutes. So it obviously helped there. But I almost feel that one of the limiting factors, when I got onto that bridge section, something that seemed to limit me was actually the lactate that was in my arms. Like, my arms were in absolute agony, almost more than my legs, as bizarre as that sounds. I mean, my legs were obviously hurting and the heart rate was up over 200, so it was a really hard effort there. But my arms were really, really painful. They were really burning. And I think that might be something that I'm probably not used to doing, like a kind of a 2-minute kind of all-out, full gas effort while out of the saddle. So that was probably a huge learning point for me here, was that something that I need to work on is those out of the saddle efforts. It's clearly helped put out more power. You know, when you're racing indoors, being aero obviously doesn't matter, so you can get out the saddle. But I'd almost feel that was more limiting. Kind of the discomfort the rest of me was in was almost more limiting than actually actually putting up the power then, as unusual as that is. As you can see over this kind of bypass section, this slight rolling road, this little group that I ended up in, it hasn't come back to the front of the race, and they are now 20 seconds up the road. So it's kind of something I've kind of accepted, that the front of the race has gone for me here today. There's a bigger group just behind us, and they will catch us as we kind of enter onto the descent. So nothing major happens between here and the finish, so I'll just skip forward to the finish and we'll have a little look at that. So jump forward to the last couple of kilometres here, and that group has joined us. And there we are in this group. We're in position, I think it's 32, 33, up to position sort of 55, 56. So we've got a group of probably just over 20 riders here. And here we are, 2.5k to the finish, and a couple of the riders from the Polish team there are kind of pushing the pace at the front. Now, from the recon race that I did last week, this exact same type of thing happened, where around 3k out, a few riders through this tunnel section started actually pushing long. So I thought that it might be important, as it was in the recon race, to actually try and kind of follow them and not sit too deeply in that pack, just in case they kind of get away. Because obviously all of the riders, like myself, who are in this group, have been dropped from the lead pack. So we've obviously been really gassed and kind of blown up. So there's going to be a lot of sore legs in this pack. So I just didn't want a couple of riders to go up the road and actually get tailed off. Now, in a normal Zwift race, if you're in this kind of a chasing pack like this, there is really nothing for you to ride for. However, in a ZRL race, particularly since they've changed the point structure for these scratch races, absolutely every single point counts. Every single point counts. And, you know, there's between kind of finishing at the front of this pack and finishing towards the back of this pack is going to be a difference of over 20 points. So it was still really, really important for me to try and finish in the top couple of riders here, because, you know, a lot of the differences at the actual, on the results page can often be a couple of points. You know, I've seen it be, you know, a small handful of points that's between say first and second or places in the overall standings. So it is really, really important in these ZRL races that you kind of, the points that, let's say, if one of your last finishing riders or the riders who finish in slightly lower down the pack are as important as the riders who finish in, you know, who may be competing for the win there. So again, a couple of riders have pushed out of that tunnel. Heart rate's up over 190 again. So it's really burning, and my arms were also really hurting again from that effort of earlier. So a couple of the riders here, a couple of the Wahoo Lokal riders actually, they're not in the same sort of team, but not in the same race team, if that makes sense. We've got two Wahoo Lokal teams in this actual division. So they're the same club, but not the same team. So they pushed on early, and just as we got 400 metres to go, I hit the aero and I just committed to a little bit of a sprint. Again, it's not a brilliant sprint, not great power because of the amount that we gassed, but it was enough here to kind of go clear of the bulk of that pack and catch a couple of the riders up the road here just as we head into the finish line. I did back off a little bit early and one rider came through me. That's something I'll definitely not be doing again. I should know better than that, really. But one rider actually did pass me there just before the finish line. So that was a really hard effort for me. However, I was quite happy with it in many ways. I set new power PBs for that kind of 2-minute spell, so I don't feel that I could have done masses more. And as it turned out, at the finish line, or at the results I should say, we discovered that my Wahoo Lacol Dev Team squad actually won the day, but we won the day by only 2 points. So what I was saying about going into the finish line, the importance of riders actually fighting for every single point in a ZRL race is extremely important, because without that, without me actually fighting for those points, if I'd finished slightly further down in that group, we would not have finished in first place there. So overall, as a team result, really positive. You can't do better than actually win the night. On a personal level, I obviously need to improve. A lot of the riders in that lead pack, they have 5-minute watts per kilo was kind of high fives. I think I did 5.1 watts per kilo for 5 minutes, which again is a new PB in watts per kilo for 5 minutes, but I have got a long way to go. Something I'm going to be doing from here moving on, I need to try and work on perhaps that standing power, short spells, out of the saddle, just to almost build up not so much the legs and the fitness, but just the actual physical kind of resistance to the effort, just so my body's kind of more in a position to be more able to actually deal with it. So next week, I believe it's a points race next week. It might be a TTT, but we shall see how it goes.